Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session today on getting students started with CSFirst via Google Doodles. My name is Stuart Gray, and I'm here with Cami, and we're going to introduce things to get started. I'm Stuart Gray from Ottawa, Ontario, which is on unceded Anishinaabe Algonquin territory. And Cami?
I am from Alberta, Medicine Hat, Alberta, in the southeast corner by Saskatchewan and Montana, not far from either of those places. And I am a district instructional lead in my district, and we are right on the border of Treaty 4 and Treaty 7 territory where I am.
That's great. And I want to just mention before we start off, if you want to know more about the land that you're situated on, there's a great resource, native-land.ca, and you can learn more about the territory where you're sitting on as well. We want to invite you to follow along with all the amazing content that Logix Academy offers. If you're new to joining us for these sessions, there's a huge amount of great content for educators constantly being presented throughout the year. So the website information and social information is there, and I'll share that out as well as we go throughout the chat. And on that, I want to mention as well that this is designed to be an interactive session, so please engage with us in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring things actively throughout, and you can ask any questions that you have at any point, and we'll make sure to make this as engaging and useful for you as possible. We also wanted to mention that Logix Academy is proud to provide the following program listed here, and this is all made possible, these sessions today, from the generous funding from CanCode. And so we've got a great amount of content lined up with the teacher focus sessions today, and then we're going to talk about some of the co-taught lessons coming up as well. But yeah, this is all made possible through funding from CanCode. So I'm going to now pass it over to Cami, who is going to take you through CSFirst. And as I said, please feel free, though, at any point to jump in the chat.
All right. Yes, if you're joining us this morning, we'd love to know where you're joining us from, and do you use CSFirst? What grade levels do you teach, or are you in another role? That's all super helpful, so we know who we're chatting with this morning. So, what is CSFirst? Well, it is a block-based coding program that, well, it's essentially Scratch. So if you've done any coding or you know any coding, it is Scratch, but inside of a much safer Google environment. So Google has CSFirst has a Google dashboard that you join with your class, and your students are in there. And so they're using Scratch, but they're inside of a very safe Google environment. And so if you use Scratch out in the wild on the universe, there's no monitoring who else is on there. So it might be students, it might not be students, and you can chat and interact. And so Google and CSFirst is a much safer environment. So that's why we love CSFirst in our district. One of the lovely things that we'll see today is that it's very differentiated. It can absolutely be done asynchronously, although today we are going to go kind of step by step to get things started. But then once you get your students to a certain point and they have the basics, it can be super differentiated. So those kids that have really caught on there, they can just go and there's information where they can keep learning and learning. On the other hand, those kids that struggle, they can just keep going. And in the end, it all looks like they're doing the same thing. And so that's awesome. We talked about the secure dashboard that comes with the Google part. It says it aligns with the Ontario curriculum, but it actually, I think we have at least 6 curriculums. There's a list coming up that it aligns with later on, and it's got all different subject areas. It has math, of course, and science, but there's a number of lessons that are around language arts. So our language arts teachers love to use it. There's music, art, sound, all different kinds of things. And so that is what we're going to take a look at. Now, this is kind of an overview of the dashboard when you come in, and you'll see that there's a block coding environment in there, and there's some starter projects. So basically, there's a project guide, and the students follow along as we go through. So the first thing that so as we go along today, we're going to kind of take a look at their website, the things that you find in CSFirst. And then we're going to also do a student tour. So you're going to become a student and we're going to work around as a student. By the end of the day, though, we're absolutely going to have you make a teacher account if you don't have one, and then log in as teachers. But that'll be the part at the end after we've gone through as a student. One of the things we don't want to do is the student version of you and the teacher version of you. We want to make sure that those are separate today. So we're going to do that. And I'm actually going to jump over to make sure we're in the right spot here. I'm going to jump over to the live web to take a look at some of these things here. Okay, so Oh, you know what? This is different. You have to remove first and now add. You should just be able to click. And I know that happened one other time, but I'm like, why won't this change? We have to remove and then add. Okay, good. I'll try to remember that.
We see a live view now if you're your browser.
That's okay. Good. Thanks. Okay, so here we go. So when we go there, we can just Google CSFirst. And then it's usually the first one that comes up, CSFirst with google.com. So we can click on there. And then right now you can see that I'm actually gonna log out to start so that we're all the same here. And we see that we have these different items up at the top, and we're going to click on curriculum first of all. And so you can see that there's lots and lots of curriculum that we have here. There's some hour of code lessons. So you might be familiar with hour of code, which typically happens big day in December. And those are lessons in there. That's one where we're actually going to go into to look today. The ones within hour of code are actually called text-based lessons. So if you see right here, these ones say text-based, and then they have a little introductory flag, or some of them will say intermediate or advanced. So you can look for that. And then they also have an approximate amount of time they would take. So you could do this one in 1 hour, or one lesson, 1 hour, but there's way more content in there. I always come back for at least 2 or 3 lessons when I do some of these, just because it's great to have the kids actually build something meaningful. So those ones under hour of code are text-based. Now, if we keep coming back here, I'm going to go back. So we've got those 1 hour of code lessons. Then these ones down here, you'll notice very language arts focused, characterization, dialogue. You'll see here that these ones say video-based. And so that'll be a little different format than we're going to look at. Basically, there's a video that comes on in those ones. You open up in one pane and the narrator takes you through, do this, do this, do this. And then the kids are in a second tab and they're coding, and then they go back and forth. They can rewind the video. You'll see that some of these are available in Spanish, and some are also available in French as well, which is more even greater for us. So there's these single kind of lessons, and then down, if you keep going, there are multi-day unit lessons, and you can see that these are 8 to 12 hours. So these could be certainly weeks, or even, a mini course if you have career or kind of technology courses that you want to have. And then down, if we keep going, you see these ones are some intermediate lessons, and there's even some advanced lessons. So CSFirst takes you a long way through. Let's actually go down to, let's click on this dialogue one here. So when we click into these lessons, you'll notice that there's lots of different examples and materials here. So if we click on the lessons, we see what's inside. So that's just a quick overview of what they're going to learn. And then if we click on the examples tab, we have a number of examples, and we can click on those. You can run them. You can show your students of what might eventually be at the end of what they're programming, or even just for you to have an idea of what that looks like. And then probably the best part is the lesson plan. So I'm going to pop one of these open. And you can see they've got these great detailed lesson plans. And the part that I really like is when we come down to the bottom, they have solution guides. So if this is what you want to do, this is the thing that you need to do. So you can see there's some really specific things. And it's almost like a troubleshooting. If this happens, try this. And if you want them to do this, this is what it needs to look like. So sometimes I print these and I just walk around with these in my hand so that if there's a problem and I'm not sure, I can just pop into the lessons and take a look at what that should look like. Because sometimes in the moment, it's like, I can't figure it out. Let's take a look. So that is a lesson guide. Stuart, are those are all showing up okay? I think I have it shared to the right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
everything's good.
Okay, so that is a lesson guide. And so you can see here, I'm just going to mention this, the posters, the stickers, it says you can order. You can download them, but if they say order anything, typically they only send to the United States, which is a little bit disappointing, but that's what that is there. So we are I'm going to go back. So lots and lots of teacher support for CSFirst. Okay, now let's come back here. Just want to make sure. There are some that are available in French. And we looked at the resources. Excellent. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to take you into the teacher dashboard. I'm going to go into one of my accounts so that you can see everything that's in there. Because for you, when you make your first account today, we'll get to that. It'll be empty. So we'll take you into mine because the teacher dashboard is one of the great pieces that exists here. So we'll remove this. We'll come back over here. All right. So I'm going to sign in here. So I'm a teacher. And I've been in here lots, so it recognizes me pretty quick. You might have to click a couple extra yes, I agree buttons. All right, so you can see here at the very top right-hand corner that it says My Dashboard. And so that's what we get to. All these little tiles are different classes that I have. Over on the left, there's the Classes tab, which we're in. You can see there's archive classes. If I click on the Projects tab, so I'm on the left-hand side now, you can see all sorts of different projects. These would be ones mostly that I have done personally from my account. And then you can play with your profile. You used to be able to switch from being a student to a teacher profile. And that seems to have disappeared, or it doesn't seem to be available anymore. So later on when we play, we're going to go in as not even logged in, just so that we don't get you contaminated with a student account instead of a teacher account. So let's take a look at some work that is happening. So let's come on over to this PD class, and we're going to come into this one. Let it load here. And so yesterday or recently, we were working on my Google logo. So you can see this is all the different lessons that are in here. And you can see that students have been clicking around or doing some things in some of those. So we're going to come into my Google logo. Oops, I shouldn't have clicked there. We're going to go over here, activities viewed. So on the right-hand side beneath that bar graph, I'm going to click on activities viewed. And so this is where we get into the great teacher dashboard. And so you can see all of my Sesame Street friends, Cookie Count, Elmo, Ernie, they've been working hard. When I click open this little button here, it shows me where everyone is at. So I can see the check marks, and I actually have 20 students. I have some empty students in here. So if it says 11 out of 20, or there's probably 8 or 9 that aren't even in here, but I can tell from the check marks that they've been to that part and gone beyond, or whether they've actually accidentally skipped a part. So I can see how far they've gotten. And so this is really great because when you come in the next day, it's like, are we done? Are we ready to move on? No, we need to go back here. This is probably where I should do a little reteach or a little reintroduction, and then we can go on from there. But wait, there's more. So activities viewed, I'm in the top tab. And then if I come to projects submitted, I can click on a student and see the project that they're working on. And so I can come through here and see the work that they've done. And now I can come into any one of these. So let's just go into Ernie's here. I can open that up. And now this is loading me right into the students project and actually the spot where they are at. So I'm just going to go back. So as a teacher, I can come in, maybe if a student's really stuck, or they were stuck and you want to just get them over that point because it was maybe an internet glitch that day and it wasn't their issue, you can come in and fix it for them so that they're not so frustrated when they start off the next day. So there's lots of different ways that we can get to the student's work. So this is me inside of a student account. Ernie's account, and I can help Ernie out if I need to there. So, Stuart, this part here, the dashboard, is what's so powerful about CSFirst. And as a teacher, that's one of my favorite parts of CSFirst.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just saying. It's combining, again, the amazing things you can do in Scratch for students and teachers, but then being able to track all that student progress and see, who needs that targeted support. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about differentiated, that is part of it. So we went through activities and projects submitted. Here's units. I can also come. So I'm in the tab in the top here. And then I can also see this is the student information, their login, their username. They need to keep their passwords. I have a sheet with their passwords as well. And then we can see what they're currently working on. And so there's lots of views there. Oh, at the bottom here, this is important. You can add co-teachers. And so that's really handy if there's two of you, or I actually, when I help teachers come in as a coach and help teachers get started, I often have them add me as a teacher so that if something's wrong or something's stuck, I can go in and help them out that way. Okay, so we looked at CSFirst and classwork. Now, we talked about how it aligns to the curriculum. And so Michelle, I thought in the chat, said that we have for all provinces. So we have at least 6 that are on here as well. So these are the ways that the materials are mapping onto your curriculums. I think the Alberta curriculum, for example, where I am is K-6 is 4-6 because that's where our new curriculum comes from. But math, science, language arts, all the places, the different provinces are each done a little differently, but nice curriculum maps there. So I know I tell my teachers, hey, if we spend 2 days coding in CSFirst, you are done. In Alberta, your computer science strand and your science course, you're done. You've covered it all and then some. So we can always go in and take a look at that. So we are going to actually dive in and get you coding today. So what we're going to do is we are going to, as teachers today only, we aren't going to have you sign in as we practice. So I'm going to have you, if you haven't already, go to CSFirst and Google it. Just get there like we did before. And then I'm going to have you click on that curriculum tab. And I will lead you into that. I'll actually go over there and we'll get into there. What else did I want to make sure we're going to look at? If you're watching along with the video after, the slides are there, but we are going to continue without signing in. So as we go through this, let's just make sure that we don't sign in. So I'm going to come back to CSFirst, and you're going to come to curriculum. And you're going to come down to 1 hour lessons. Click explore lessons on the 1 hour lesson part. I always feel that those ones are a little bit too hidden there. And then we're going to come to Google logo. Now, I don't think you'll have add to class because you're not logged in. You're just going to click view. So what that means is as we proceed this morning, the work that you do isn't going to be saved into your account. Hopefully that doesn't break your heart too bad, but it'll just be that kind of the fastest, easiest way to get us going without having your teacher log in, connect accidentally with the student login. So I'm going to have you go ahead and press start. And this is how this is going to work. And oh, just a second. I'm not signed out. Well, that's not what we want. I'll show you one more time so I can sign out. So we're going to come to Sign out, sign out. Okay, so Google logo, start. Stuart, I hope you're going to do this too so we can see what you are experiencing. There we go. So we're going to go continue without signing in. And as soon as we do that, in the top center, it says, hey, projects can't be saved. Now, this is just for us this morning. When you do this with your kids, you will want them signed in. We're going to get to how to connect with Google Classroom or your account. We're going to get that all toward the end of the show today. But this is going to be the important part of helping you understand how CSFirst works, especially with the non-video versions. Now, this actually starts off with a video, and we'll play this. There is different playback speeds, and there's a transcript that's available that you can see as well. So I'm just going to play this. Stuart, are you hearing that?
Yeah, but it's pretty low volume. I would say maybe we can just skip through there. But I found that people can watch that if they want the introduction, but also as soon as they're at the end of the progress bar, like I sometimes just jump ahead and then we can move on to the.
So I would show that with the kids. One of the things that I want to point out to you is that they have lots of female coders and lots of people from a variety of ethnicities. So that's really great. So I would certainly show this to my kids, but in the end, you're also going to have them scroll through to get to the edge. Now haven't put it all to the way to the end because I want you to see a couple things. In the bottom corner, there's that okay, got it button. Now that pops up lots, and that can cause some problems because there's something really important underneath there. So watch when I'm going to unclick okay, got it, and you'll notice that there's a gray arrow. Now that arrow is super important for the text-based CSFirst. And so I'm just going to press play on the video, and I want you to watch what happens when we get to the very end of the video. So it's getting close. Okay, so as soon as I got to the end of the video, did you notice that the little arrow in the bottom went green and the check box in the top right-hand corner got a check in it? With my students, I would actually have them with their computers, I call it alligatored, so kind of closed at 45 degrees, and they're all on the board watching me during this first part. So I've tried it a bunch of different ways, and what seems to work best is if I show a couple steps and then they go back and do them. Otherwise, if you wait for every kid to do every step, it goes a little bit slower. But it's important that they watch you first and aren't trying to do at the same time, because they inevitably go ahead. And then in this particular instance with the text-based lessons, they can get stuck really quick. And so I've learned that the best way is to do a really good teacher model and then send them on. And I'm going to model that for you this morning. So of course you might play around as we're going through, but I'll let you know where I would stop and have the students go back and do it. So this is an example page. You can see that we already have the bottom green arrow, but it's really good for kids to just see, oh, look at what we can do. And then, oh, I wonder what happens if we press this pink arrow. Oh, what's happening? The background's changing. So we can talk a little bit about that. Don't have to spend a lot of time there, but they do get excited about the possibilities. So we're going to press that green arrow at the bottom. All right, now we're in the last of the introduction page. And so this is where it starts to get really important. Because if students don't do the things in the right order, or if they don't do the right things, they won't get the green arrow. And sometimes they might get the green arrow, but if they haven't done the parts on this screen that they need for the next screen, then they won't get the green arrow on the next screen because they're not set up with the thing that they need. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so here it says, as you follow, you'll find step-by-step instructions. If you see a word underlined in pink, click it to get a hint about what that word means. It's important to show this because if we don't, kids actually don't read that and they don't click. So if we click, watch what happens. Oh, I get a check mark and there's a little arrow that says come down here. All right. Oh, let's check that out. So there we can see that there's the audio instructions. And so the audio lady will read everything. So in the videos, the video has the audio. In this version, there are always audio instructions down there. So now you can see we have 2 green check marks and we have the green arrow. We can go to the next slide. Now, at this point, sometimes students just want to kind of get in there and play. And if they do that, they tend to get stuck later on. So again, this is why I would walk through first, and I wouldn't have the kids open up yet. I'll tell you when I would have them do that. So here it says the light bulb at the bottom is an instruction drawer. So, I say, hey, there's a pink line. What should we do? Click on it. And then we click on that. And, okay, so we'll click down there. And so then there's this hint tray that pops up. And again, if we don't go through this as a class, 80%, 90% of kids don't know that it's there, and it's super helpful. And we can point out that the okay, so it's often code or it shows where to go to get something. So that hint light bulb is really important. So again, we have our check mark, we have our green arrow, we can go on. You'll notice we haven't actually touched the coding bar yet. Sometimes students want to jump in, and sometimes as a teacher, the first couple times that I was doing this, I jumped in and started to say, hey, look what we can do. And then actually we had to go back and redo things because it's not geared for that. So the first vocab word we get is sprite. So we can take a look. The sprite is the character. We got our check mark. Now, you'll notice here, that it took a little second for that green arrow to come. All right. And so this is not a bad spot to wait. Okay. So I would say, okay, everybody, we're going to stop here. I want you to go back, go through the video, check all the buttons, click the lines, get your check marks, and stop at section 2.2 where you have the Google. And so we would go back, and it takes about 5 minutes for the kids to do all that. But then they know the things, they know the light bulb, they know the audio, they know the hint, and those are really important parts for going on to work independently and differentiated, doing differentiated work. And if we don't show them and have them do that together like that, they just skip it. So, or they don't necessarily get it, right? So it's important to talk about that and demonstrate that. So now we talk about a sprite. We just had that definition, and it talks about doodlers. And so now it says, click on the costumes tab to see the options for your first sprite. So we always want to encourage them to click on that pink button. It says, the costumes tab is over here. And so when I click on that, I get my check mark and the green arrow. Now, again, there's some temptation to just start showing kids here what to do, which I've done. And then sometimes I get stuck because the next page, we don't do the thing. So just come on here and check that green button. Now pick a costume. So it's important that you actually pick the costume on this page because it's triggered to look for it here. So this is great. On the left-hand side here, you can come through. And for this particular one, you have a whole bunch of different costumes loaded up, and the kids get so excited that they can pick their costumes. Now, you'll notice in our sprite choice area down here, we don't have other sprites available. There's only the G, the one that's loaded up here. And you have to click on at least 2 different sprites before you'll get the arrow. That sometimes happens. Or if we troubleshot that recently, that student had only clicked on one, and it wants you to click on a few. And so that's a little troubleshooting tip. Now I got my green arrow. So now when we come over here, it says each of your sprites needs its own costume. So it shows you where the costume switcher is. And then it says click on another sprite. And so it shows you could actually click on any of them. You don't have to pick that and then you can choose a new costume. And so it says repeat for the remaining sprites. So we can go through and have the kids do that real quick. Of course, they like to take some time here, but again, we want to follow those instructions. And then once we have our remaining sprites, we can go to the next one. So I basically say, go until you have all your sprites, and then that's another good stopping spot. So when they choose sprites too quickly, or if they sometimes they'll just get on a sprite and they'll say, hey, what happens here? Can I change the color? Like they'll start to do all sorts of different things. And they'll work on a sprite because they want to test the buttons. But what happens is they have the buttons don't click and then they have trouble later on. So let's keep going. Any questions in the chat, Stuart? Do you have your Google letters done?
I've got my sprites going. Everything looks okay in the chat. So
yeah. Okay. So this is fun. The kids have a ball. If you have a short class time, this is a nice place to stop. You're kind of you're set up. And then the next thing we're going to do is go on to the block coding. So again, here's a nice definition. I really like how they build that in. Okay, so the blocks are those little pieces of code, and they mentioned that it's actual Scratch coding, and some students are familiar with Scratch. Now, we're in the costumes tab right now, which is actually not where a lot of coding starts. Most often we start in the code tab. So this Google logo one's a little different that we start in the costumes, but each lesson in CSFirst kind of has a different focus. So now we're going to switch to the code tab. Where is that? Oh, let's press the pink button. There it is. And sometimes, depending on the computer screens, if your students are on smaller Chromebook screens, sometimes the screen width is an issue and the pieces fall off the edge of the page. I had that with just one computer yesterday where we just couldn't quite, everything was always off the edge of the page. So that does happen sometimes. So there we see our code and we got our check mark here. It says choose the letter you'd like to program by clicking on the sprites icon. So normally I come here at this point and I tell them, okay, which sprite are we on right now? Oh, we can see the elephant is blue in the bottom, but we also show in the top right-hand side of the coding area that the elephant shows there. So if I click on the first O for the sun, it's blue in the sprite panel, but then it's also a little ghost sun in the coding pane. And so we want them to see this is a good point to show them where the correspondence is between clicking on the sprite and the code. So we can go to the next one. Now, this part in particular, once we start to drag out blocks, is where students see other things and they want to try other things. Often because the talking buttons are at the top, the kids will do all sorts of crazy things. Like some kids just want to go in there and make them talk. And so they'll pull those out and do that, but they won't have done the thing in the instructions. And so if there's trouble, it's because they haven't done these specific things. And so the very first thing, it asks to pull out a change color effect block. Now, it shows me over here. I'll click on the pink again. There's this little pink button that says do this. Sometimes that pink button doesn't show up in the right place. I'm going to just try to make that a little bigger for us. There we go. So I'll make that nice and big on the screen. So when you're demoing with kids, it's nice to go into the zoom so they can see that nice and big. So if the kids have pulled out something else, and sometimes that little pink button does end up on the wrong thing, that's often a piece that happens. Now it says click the block a few times to see how it works. And so we are on the umbrella. I usually start on the G, but I didn't this time. So when I click that, you can see every time I click it, the umbrella is changing color. And if this is the first time your students have done any block coding, they think that's really cool. All right. So we could go and do that for another one. Ooh, I'm really zoomed in there. All right. So that's how that works. So then we're going to not get too crazy and explore too much because the program wants us to explore. So we're going to use the arrow. And then it says on the drop-down menu in the change effect block, select one of the other effects. So let's make this bigger again so you can see. And so now we can go, oh, let's see what happens if we pixelate. So I'm going to click it to pixelate. Oh, look what happens. And now what happens if we do mosaic? Click it. Oh, look at a bunch of little umbrellas. And we can make it ghost. And then this often happens. It's like, oh, my letter's gone. What do I do? And that's where this next block is really important. And they're very clever. They never used to tell us this, but they've put it into the projects about how to get back when you've lost something or you want to change it. So this next one is the clear graphic effects. I tell the kids it's like the eraser. And so we're going to pull this one out. We typically don't want them connected, but when we click on that, it brings it back. And so you can see once I did that, I've got my check marks and I can go on to the next one. So 2 things here. It's important that they actually pick at least 2 different effects. And it's important that they do the clear graphic effects button. Because if they have done other code, they need these 2 buttons to continue on. So next we're going to look at events. And so events are things that get them started. Okay, and so we're going to do this part together too. Actually, I would, again, this is every time there's kind of like we get to one of those definition spots, I'd have the kids do up to this point. And you might say, code, do this for all your letters, or you might say, pull this out for 2 letters or a couple letters. They can do more letters than they want right here. So now when the sprite is clicked, it takes us to another event. If you've coded before in Scratch, you'll know that eventually we're going to have a whole bunch of different colored buttons that open up a lot of different code, but now they're just keeping it simple. So if we click on there, okay, it says when the sprite is clicked block. So drag that out when the sprite is clicked. Okay, attach the block. So I got a check mark there. And then it says test your code by clicking on the sprite on the stage. So that's a little different, and they have to read carefully because they click on this. But I'm clicking like I did before, and you'll see that it doesn't get me the checkbox. I have to actually click on the sprite on the stage to make it work. So that's something that sometimes goes wrong. Okay, next one. We've gotten to a spot here where we're at a nice stopping spot. So it says, what else would you like to do to make your logo do? I say to the kids, put anything in there. So I demonstrate, you could say spin or you could say bounce. It really doesn't matter. They just need to put something in to go to the next level. So when they press the submit button, that's where that also triggers on your teacher dashboard that they've gotten to this spot. This is a super good spot to stop at. And that's actually where we're going to transition today, but we are going to just quickly look at this next part. So this is when the real differentiation comes in. So far, the most basic that we could have done is program 1 letter, right? We've got all our Google Doodles, but really right now, the only one that's doing anything, if we click on our code, is the umbrella, and my dinosaur, my G will change color, but I don't have my clear effect block out yet, and I would encourage students to do that for all of them. So at this point, if you're trying to get all your kids to the choose add-on phase, you can have your fast finishers go back and put an effect on all of the letters, or say at least 3, or this is where you can have a little differentiation. Now, this next part, these lessons, let's go to bounce. These lessons look very similar to the ones that we just did, but there's a little bit more, the kids have choice, right? So they can choose any of them. So it's very much the same. They choose the sprite that they want to do the thing with. Oh, and I'm not getting a check mark there. Choose the sprite. Okay, does I have to choose this one? Choose the sprite.
I had the same issue when I was moving on from the first section into the add-on,
Yeah.
where it wasn't recognizing then the next step I was
Yeah.
taking.
So I think one of the things that I know is that in the add-ons, it's not as, you can actually move on without getting the check marks sometimes. So usually you can move on and it doesn't make as big of a deal. But sometimes if there is a trouble, go back and or sometimes even refreshing. But I've noticed in the add-ons, oh, I just lost it all. Haha. In the add-ons, no, did I? Oh, I did. I lost. So I refreshed. Good to know. I didn't expect that, but I lost all of my progress. but I can still continue on here and go back and do the things. What I do want to point out was that all of these lessons, let's go back here to the list. These all do something different. And so this is where the kids are learning the computer skills. It's not like code.org where it's kind of you follow the path and you do the thing and everyone's done the exact same thing. This is where they're learning different things. And so a really important skill is the method of balancing, of being able to move your character up and down, and then they can often figure out how that works side by side. So you might say to your kids, okay, you can pick all of these, but everyone has to do balance, or everyone has to do the say something, right? So you might pick one that's going to build on something that you want to accomplish later on down the road. And so again, those add-ons are a great place to have a bunch of differentiation. So here, had I not refreshed and lost it all, if we wanted to save, we could download it. So it's not going to be saved to their account, but if you want to download it as a file, you can do that. So that is interesting to note. Okay, so we are going to pop back over, remove that, come back into here. And again, that what we just did there, do a couple pages, stop, have the kids go back. I've tried lots of different things, and that seems to be a real sweet spot of a workflow. So I would highly recommend. Stuart, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's realistically for a starting point. Like, students are a big piece of this is learning the interface, as you said, because all the subsequent lessons are going to be, in that kind of same structure. So going through that where it's just focused on a small kind of slice at the beginning, but it does give them an interface to how the CSFirst navigation works, and also starting to learn the basics of the Scratch sections in terms of costumes and code blocks. So I think that's a good spot. And then, as you said, from there in future days, you can get into further differentiation and looking at the add-ons. And yeah.
Right. You might have heard the saying that you have to go slow to go fast. Well, that's just what we did, right? I've come into classes where the teachers just said, here you go. It's in Google Classroom, go. And she hated it. She said, this is the worst program ever. Why did you tell me I should use this? And the kids are frustrated and it's a mess and nobody's made anything. So especially if you work with teachers and they haven't gone through it themselves, having them go through it and take the kids through it is a super I think a super important way to get them started. Again, if you invest that time, then they can go, and it does make a big difference. I've learned that the hard way. So you're getting the wisdom of a lot of things that haven't worked as well right here. So now we're going to look at creating the teacher tab, or your teacher classroom. So we're going to go back. This time you're going to sign in. And so you will, if you have a Google account, absolutely you will use that. And if this is the first time, you can create an account. So use your school district account if that is possible. You can use a personal Gmail or a non-work account if you need to, but then you can actually still get students in that way. But for the most part, Michael has a question.
Yeah, I was just responding to him in the chat, but talking about options for pairing students up. Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to speak to that in terms of workshops you've done, because I know for device access, that's sometimes where we've done it. Yeah.
Yes. So, like anytime, like pairing up, you would have, like, if you were just doing the model that I was in, you'd say, okay, we're going to switch seats, right? So now partner B is in the driver's seat. Okay, for this next time, partner A is in the driver's seat. Or sometimes partner B gets to make the choices and partner A pushes the buttons. So if you do need to share devices, absolutely, it can work well. And then you also have that troubleshooting, that two pieces. And so it certainly works certainly works. I've done that before as well. So it does work.
And Michael mentioned about the classroom tracking in terms of student progress. I mean, I think you can always, again, use that tracking. Just know which students were partnered up with each other and understand that, when you look in the dashboard and see they've completed this section, you could account that for both of them, as a pair have completed
Right.
that step.
Yeah. So you're right. So whoever account they're logged into would track as completed. So I don't know a way to offset that in the tracking part other than you just have to keep.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
that's it. I think
good. Okay, so basically, if you're going along, you'll get a whole bunch of. I have to show the slides here because our accounts are already logged in. But you'll enter your information, and at the beginning, this one time they do take quite a bit of information. You can use a Gmail if you need, or a Microsoft email. All the confirmations, you'll go through that, the privacy screen, and then there is a survey. So the very first time you sign up, why are you registering? What's the age of the students you're going to be working with? What are you? Is this for an after school club or with an age group, or how many students do you have? They want to get some data and know all of that. So you do that once, and then you're in. So then we're at the spot where we will create our first class. And so you'll know that you're in because at the top it'll say your name and it'll say my dashboard. And so once you're in there, there's a couple places to create the class, but if you go into the left-hand side, there is a plus button, and then you'll see create class. So I'll just pop over actually into mine. I'll sign in here now. Oh, Stuart, do you want to, while I'm signing in, do you want to just pop my other screen on?
yeah, can do that. There we go. So yeah, now we've got the live view of your browser.
Okay, good. All right, so now you see that I'm in a project where I last logged off. So I'm going to come up to the top. I'm going to click my dashboard. You'll see there's my little picture and it says teacher. And I'm trying to get back to my dashboard. There we go. So now we have all of our dashes. So there's two places that we can create a class. In the top right-hand corner, there's a create class button. And there's also a button on the left. Now, you'll see right here, it says import classes from Google Classroom. When I first logged or created this account, you'll get a choice. And actually, I'm just going to see if it's in here. Yeah, you'll get a choice when you first log in if you want to connect it to your Google Classroom or not. And so that's up to you. If you don't use it, if you don't typically use Google Classroom, don't pick that. Don't make a Google Classroom connection just for that. You don't need it. But if you do use Google Classroom and your kids are accustomed to going there, you can go there and it'll send them a link to bring them into CSFirst. So here you would pick your class. If you don't want to use with Google Classroom after the fact, like let's say, for example, you've already connected your class like I have, at the bottom, you can hit create a class without. And so then you pick your name. And you pick a color. And then at the bottom, you have some choices. If you have Google accounts, that is by far the easiest way to use. Is your school, I can't remember, Stuart, is your school work at Google?
Yeah, we're Microsoft accounts first, but then they're also provisioned to have Google Workspace access. So yeah, we do have our students whenever we're doing stuff like this. Yeah, we use the sign in with Google option because, as you said, it simplifies things.
It simplifies things. So in the CSFirst accounts, if you do not have a Google access or a Google account, there's basically two things that happen there. And there are slides for that in the slide deck. We won't spend time to go into that because it's not as much of a often used option. Sometimes actually as a PD provider, as a trainer, today I just had you go in without signing in, but sometimes, do you remember when you saw Ernie and Bert and Oscar and Cookie Monster? I made those accounts with CSFirst. So with the CSFirst account, basically when I click on that, here, I'll just do this, create class, so you can see what the options are. there's two options. The students can either create their own class. So this is the teacher, or they can, you can create their profiles and then give them to the kids to use to log in. Either way, when the kids are coming in, whether they're coming in from the Google Classroom where you've put a link, or they're joining, you will put a join link somewhere, or they'll come into CSFirst and click on join a class, and then they'll put your class code in. So that class code, whether you put it as a link or you show it, you'll need to show that to students, whichever way that they've joined your class. And that's how they connect to your class. So again, if you do that with Google Classroom, that link, that code comes with them, and then they'll come in. But otherwise, you need to put that join code in. They go to CSFirst, click student, put the join code in there. And I see, have you lost me? Because I'm spinning.
It's we're still seeing your browser page. It's just,
okay.
yeah,
Let's
it looks
go
like
back to the slide deck, because who knows, that looks like it's gonna. Oh, good thing we have a backup plan. Okay, so again, we went through most of this. Students, if students use their Google account, we talked about that. This is how you make teacher-generated CSFirst accounts if you're not logging in with Google. There you see my Big Bird and Bert and Ernie. We were in that class a little bit. If we connect to Google Classroom, you saw that when I first logged in, you pick it. And then basically that assignment, when you connect your assignment to Google Classroom, when you choose your lesson, the kids go into Google Classroom, and you call it CSFirst coding or whatever you're going to call it. They click on the link, it brings them into CSFirst. So this is your setup. If you've done any linking to Google Classroom, you'll recognize what this looks like as you pick that up. And then here is what the students will see. They'll come in, they'll click sign in with Google. If you're connected to Google Classroom, they'll have an invite code. They'll click join class, and then that will bring them into CSFirst. Now, sometimes what's happened is students have come in through Google Classroom, and then the teacher doesn't see them connected on the dashboard. So they're in there, they're doing the work. But sometimes what happens is, I don't know, I can't figure out why this happens or when. Sometimes it's a perfect connection. The teacher can go into the dashboard for that class and see the students work. Sometimes, though, if your students aren't showing up on your CSFirst dashboard and you've connected them by Google Classroom, all you have to do is have your kids go into CSFirst, pick I'm a student, add that join code. It's the same join code that they would have clicked on for Google Classroom. It's that 6 or 7 letter digit number. And if they sign in through CSFirst as well, then it seems to connect the two, and then you'll get the data. I don't know why that happens. And it seems really, I haven't been able to figure out why it happens sometimes and not all the time. So usually it works, but I have had a couple instances where the students aren't, Google Classroom students aren't showing up in the teacher's dashboard. And it's just, if you have them go in and log in both places once, then that seems to connect them. And then as they continue to work, or if you put other links in Google Classroom, then they're connected, but they just have to kind of do that once. So I thought I'd mention that because that is something that happens, and it just happened this week again. So I'm like, oh, I have to mention that, because those are the things that frustrate us. And it's like, this program. But like every program, there's little things that can happen. All right. So without a Google Classroom account, same thing. They would come and add the code. This is what they would do if you need to connect, make sure that classroom connects, and then the CSFirst, if you're going to be Cookie Monster or Ernie or Oscar. Now, if students are not connecting through Google, the username and password is super important, because they only get that once and they can't reset. So that's why I recommend you make a CSV file, like it'll take you through those steps so that you've made the word, you've made the names, and then it gives you the usernames and passwords, and you can print that. There is an option where the students can create their own account, and then then it makes them click this little thing. I wrote down my username and password and told my teacher what my username is. that basically, if they use that, then you have to go around the classroom as a teacher and write down the username and password before they lose it, because really that's the only time that they see it. If they haven't written it down, if you haven't written down a background, there's no reset and they can't go back and reclaim their work. So this is why we wouldn't recommend this connection as the first method. It works great if that's what you need to use. And I've done many successful classrooms this way, but this part right here, if they don't have the username and password, they lose it. If you don't have it and they can't get back in, there's no way around that, unfortunately. So we talked about, well, actually, no, I don't know if we actually showed, oh, my page is still spinning there. Good thing we have the good slides here, Stuart. When you go in and you click on your class, it'll say add units. And then you find the unit that you want. In this case, you can see we've added it to 2 different classes. You can add it to 1 or 2, whatever you want. You click add classes, and then from Google Classroom, those will show up, but also in their CSFirst dashboard, which we can kind of see just
I can
enough.
do a live demo if you want, Cami.
We're close, actually. I'm gonna put this one on the stage because you can see through my spinning screen.
Yeah.
Here,
in the background.
you can see that it says, you can see the connected units. There we go. And so when the kids come in, if they're not coming through Google Classroom, they click on one of those, whichever one you tell them to do. Or that's another way of differentiating, right? Someone might still be doing the Google logo and someone else has moved on to a different part. So that takes us to the end.
Yeah, this is great work. I mean, I think it really highlights for me again. I've used it with students. It's been a little while, but since I've done lessons with our teachers on classroom usage. But it's a great reminder of just how powerful it is for, as you said, being able to introduce students to the world of Scratch, which we do. We have students using Scratch all the time, but as a good kind of structured introduction to Scratch and with some kind of scaffolded projects to work on and be able to track all their progress, it's again a really, really powerful tool. For our teachers that do have classrooms set up too, it's like a really seamless kind of integration where you can bring them in and start working right away. So I think it's a great program to start exploring for people if they haven't done it yet.
Yeah. Now, as Stuart's putting the feedback form into the chat for you today, I would just like to say, I know it seemed like I went through really kind of step by step, but that's just, I've ended up doing a lot of CSFirst in our district in the last couple months. And when you use something a lot, it's like, oh, there's this little thing and this little thing. And so those are little things that I'm trying to pass on to you so that it goes smoothly. Because the first time that I had gone in there and, we used to be the videos all the time. And now the new text-based one is coming online and it's newer. It operates a little different, and you have to be pretty specific and methodical. And I found that when you just take the kids, do these 3 little parts, come back, stop, alligator your lids. We're going to show, okay, now your turn. When we do that, you do for this to get them started, saves you so much time in the end. All right. Well,
yeah. Did you want to just check too if I know Michael, I've had some questions throughout. If there's any other questions, you can feel free to paste them in. The feedback form there is on the screen there, bit.ly/logicsfeedback. I'll paste in the chat as well for you, so you've got quick access. But otherwise, I want to thank you for joining us today. Also, as mentioned, that there are ongoing other PD sessions throughout the day today. And there's also a series of co-taught lessons that go along with this summit, where you can actually connect with Logix facilitators who will come in and guide your class through interactive sessions all around getting students again comfortable with coding. So that's a great opportunity to take advantage of. And we're thank you for joining us today, and keep coding and keep getting your students engaged with this.
All right. Well, we never looked at your Google Doodles. Maybe you send us off with what you've coded. But thanks for joining us, and we hope that you see some more great sessions this morning.
All right. Bye, everyone.